that's the question we want to discuss today. Just to introduce ourselves, so Jan-Peter Kleinhans and I both work in Berlin at think tanks and institutes. So Jan-Peter is at the Stiftung Neue Verantwortung, which is a non-partisan, non-profit think tank in Berlin, where he leads the Internet of Things security project. And I work at the Digital Society Institute. That's an institute which is only a couple of months old now. And I focus on a project on industrial cybersecurity there now. So, so the title already will tell you that our presentation also looks a little bit more at cybersecurity policy, but we want to look at the politics behind this as well. And basically saying, there are a lot of cooks, a lot of different actors in the political sphere that are very interested now in cybersecurity. And so we want to pose the question, is this always effective? And what kind of strategy and cybersecurity policy should we have? We will look specifically at the German context. So now we narrow down from the European to the German context and then hope to open it up again. In the end, we want to pose some questions to you. And so whenever we talk about Germany now, we'd also like you, warn you already kind of to have in mind that to maybe think about your own country and your own organizations as well, how things look there, in order to have a fruitful discussions later with some questions that we will have for you. You might ask, why are we presenting as policy wonks kind of here at this ICS Security Conference? Well, we believe that IT security has become an issue of national security as well in many countries. It has also become an issue of economic well-being, and basically society now has become the referent object of cybersecurity as a whole, right? So we're trying to protect the entire society from cyber attacks and from malware and what so on. I mean, we've discussed that a lot. And so when we talk about critical infrastructure protection, that's exactly where this discourse then happens. And so we specifically look now at policy in Germany focusing on critical infrastructures, but do not adopt the kind of policy definition of critical infrastructures, but also a broader perspective on, what is critical, what in the devices and technologies we use. That's not for me. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I'll just go on. So one of the main questions we want to discuss again is, if you have a strategy, if you have cybersecurity policy, obviously you will define the threats, and you will also define what is it that needs to be protected from these threats. And so if neither the threats nor the objects that need to be protected are very clear, you might end up in a state where actually responsibilities among actors that are supposed to do cybersecurity policies are not very clear, and that can result in sort of turf battles as well, which Jan-Peter will explain a little bit later. So this is the political part in this. And so, I'll just start briefly explaining a little bit what cybersecurity policy in Germany looks like, but especially how the issue came onto the agenda. And I want to skip this to make this really short because we don't have much time. But basically an issue, I don't have a lot of time at all. So I'll just skip the slide and just explain to you, we have a little graphic here, a timeline, and this black line shall just illustrate a little bit, public awareness of cybersecurity. And okay, I thought you told me I need to slow down. Okay. I'll just quickly go back to that slide then. But this is just very basic, right? So there are a lot of theories about how issues rise up the agenda and policy and so on. But what we can really hold on to is there are problems out there in the world. Cybersecurity is a problem, and it has been highlighted over the last 10 years, at least in the political sphere. Then there are policy solutions, usually in ministries, and a lot of more technical experts in the ministries will already work on these issues for a long time, and they will have solutions ready. And so if a problem becomes really apparent and there needs to be a solution, usually there are some solutions already present, but then the politics start, of course, and so public opinion matters as well. And the framing of the problem will matter a great deal in terms of how exactly the problem will then be solved and what strategy we will have in order to solve the problem. And so this is just more generally, but just remember, the focusing events are important. If there's a crisis or a disaster, or maybe some experience of a politician who has been hacked or something, right, then suddenly there's a lot of attention for an issue, and it will kind of get dragged up from the technocratic environments up to the national political agenda. So, and I would just like to guide you a little bit through the political agenda, cybersecurity policy development in Germany. I will not talk about every one of the incidents because many of you are familiar with them. But the important parts are basically the blue ones, because this is what happened in terms of policy in Germany and the different strategies that were published, or the laws. And then the red incidents are really focusing events in terms of they really influenced the public debate in Germany about cybersecurity, and also how cybersecurity is increasingly perceived as a real security issue that does not only threaten the security of networks, but the security of people and the economy as well. So we started off in 2005, critical information infrastructure strategy. That was kind of the first policy measure back then, and also the basis for the cybersecurity strategy later. We have Stuxnet recovery in 2010, which basically led, which provoked a lot of outrage around the world. What should we do? How should we adjust our cybersecurity policy? And that's when cybersecurity strategies popped up on the national level. And that happened in 2011, and in 2011 in Germany. We had our first national cybersecurity strategy. But we have to keep in mind that in Germany, the strategy was had very civilian focus. So the focus was on civilian defense, critical infrastructure protection, and it was basically, it strengthened the role of the Federal Office for Information Security, BSI. We have someone from BSI speaking here later as well, so that's very exciting. And then the strategy also set up some other bodies, like the National Cyber Defense Center that Jan-Peter will talk about more later. Yeah, and then we come to the super-GAU, Snowden revelations, in 2013. And I think there's not a lot of countries in the world that reacted with so much outrage as in Germany. We even had an inquiry, a national inquiry committee in the parliament that is called the NSA Inquiry Committee, and looking at what the NSA did, how the NSA surveilled people in Germany, and especially industry, but also what our own intelligence agencies did. And we actually learned a lot about our own intelligence agencies as well. So another effect of that was that everyone became very aware of the cybersecurity problem, because there was also a lot of talk about the cyber weapons of the NSA and our own intelligence agencies as well. So basically here we have the spike, it's basically high up on the political agenda. Everyone, even Merkel, talks about cybersecurity, although she before wasn't that into it, I guess. Yeah, Merkel, our chancellor, sorry. And then I think another important event here is in 2014 at the Wales Summit, NATO, the Transatlantic Military Organization, actually extended its Article 5, collective defense article, to cyber attacks. And so we can see here, this event in itself might not be the most important thing, but actually behind the scenes, NATO built up a lot of pressure on member states to build more military offensive cyber capabilities, and that was especially also the case for the German military, that they should really go ahead and finally step up their military cybersecurity. Yeah, we had an attack on the German steel mill that was mentioned earlier. Important, but maybe not as much as the Snowden revelations or something. I think what is a really important event then is the Bundestag hack in 2015. The parliament was hacked by an unknown group. Our domestic intelligence agency attributed it to the Russians. So yeah, We have heard a lot about them in these recent days. But anyway, the hack itself was just very important because it made a lot of parliamentarians and a lot of politicians feel the personal experience of being hacked. And up to date, it's not known how much data actually flew out of the service and of the parliament. And yeah, it was just a huge disaster. Ironically, 1 month later, the parliament adopted a new IT security law, which had already been discussed. And the IT security law actually requires operators of critical infrastructures to report incidents to the BSI, to the Federal Information Security Office in Germany, and it also sets mandatory security standards. So basically, our IT security law from last year already anticipates the NIS directive and started implementing it already, kind of, yeah? We will go more into depth on that later. An interesting development this year is actually that the military got on the stage. Also, you know, phrasing it at this national security issue, the military published its own cybersecurity strategy document in April this year. And now in November, we will see an updated national cybersecurity strategy. And that will change a whole lot. We have already seen leaked drafts, so that's why Jan-Peter can tell you what's in there, and I hand over to him.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I know that for most of you, the blood is right now in the stomach, digesting the lunch, which was really, really nice. So I want to keep this short. The idea of the next 2 slides is to go with you in a time machine and look how the national approach towards cybersecurity was back in the day, 2011, and nowadays, and how it changed and what implications this has from a governmental perspective and towards cybersecurity. Just what Isabel said before, how the framing of cybersecurity changed towards national security as an incremental part of national security. And Isabel already gave a heads up. We show you what we know best, the German perspective. But as I go through the next 2 slides, I want you also to think, keep listening to me, but go a little bit inside you and try to think, how does this relate to your own country? How would this graph look like for your own country? So, 2011. The approach was rather simple and straightforward. The Ministry of Interior is head of the Office for Information Security, and the Office of Information Security has quite an internationally good standing in terms of certification and a very technical organization with a lot of expertise. And they have just got established 2011 the Cyber Defense Center, where you had for the first time an institutionalized information sharing between different agencies. So the police, the BSI, the domestic surveillance agencies will all meet up in the center, theoretically, and share information on cyber threats. Just a tiny little fun fact, our own Code of Finance gave the Cyber Defense Center 4 years later a very bad review because with just 10 people and almost 0 resources, what they were setting out to do, to share information in an efficient way to protect Germany from cyber threats, didn't really work and didn't really happen just because they were understaffed, underpowered, under-resourced, no competency. The Situation Center is a lot older. It already got established in the early 2000s. The Zertbund also. Both are headed by or sitting inside the Office for Information Security. And with this, the national security approach towards IT security is done. This box basically explains, with some exceptions, but in a nutshell, this explains the approach 2011. Let's head to 2016. The world looks a little bit different. So we have, let me switch to here. We still have a huge chunk of the responsibility inside the Ministry of Interior. You still see the Cyber Defense Center, which will get also with a cyber strategy that will be released next month. It's supposed to get a huge budget and resource increase. The Situation Center is now the central reporting point based on the IT security law, so all the critical infrastructure providers have to report to the Situation Center if they have incidents and so on. And the Bund is supposed to become the national CERT, so also increased budget, increased resources. So no new mandates, but increased resources, increased budget. Additionally, we now have the idea of quick reaction forces. And you can see them in many different agencies, all under the Ministry of Interior. So the Federal Criminal Police to fight cybercrime becomes a quick reaction force. The Domestic Intelligence Agency becomes a quick reaction force. The nice thing about Germany is that we have 16 federal states, so we have 16 federal domestic surveillance agencies, intelligence agencies. We have 16 domestic police agencies. They all are now slowly building up their own quick reaction forces. Some are also building their own idea of a federal BSI, sometimes with a different flavor, sometimes with a different focus, but you can see that all the federal states are also now becoming active, some to a larger extent, some to a lesser. As I said, the BSI, the Office for Information Security, also became a quick reaction, or got a quick reaction force, establishes it right now, and as Isabel mentioned, now the Ministry of Defense, the Bundeswehr, our military, they also got to want to get involved, and in their cyber strategy, or in the new strategy paper, which deals with cyber, they focus heavily on their own networks. So the basic idea is the Bundeswehr needs to arrive in the 21st century. We need to take care of our own networks. We need to modernize our IT. We need to have a sensible IT infrastructure, which makes sense. But in between the lines and at some paragraphs, you can also read sentences like taking care of critical infrastructure protection, taking care of the national security, and so on. So the military has a Center for Cyber Operations, which is new, based on the new strategy paper. They already had the Bundeswehr, so the military CERT, and also since several years ago, they have the Computer Network Operations, which is the offensive section or offensive capabilities of the military. Additionally, just as a side note, additionally to that, they are heavily focusing resources at the University of Technology in Munich, which is the Bundeswehr, the military university, and there they created a new faculty and a new master's program specifically for cybersecurity, with quite a lot of resources, and in the long run they want to become 70 people, 70 master students every year out of this new initiative. So what we're seeing is, yes, the Ministry of Interior is still the focus of the national initiative towards cybersecurity, but at the same time we have a fight for budget, a fight for competence between Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Interior. And I just had an interesting conversation outside with someone from the industry, and the person said, and I think rightly so, well, everybody is just right now figuring out digitalization. Everybody is figuring out how to do IT security. So just like companies need to evolve and try to figure out stuff and try to earl quickly, earl fail a lot, we need to do the same for the state. So right now the state is perhaps also just figuring out, well, where's our focus? Do we need 20 different quick reaction forces headed by different agencies? Is that a sensible and efficient approach? or should we centralize everything in the Ministry of Defense or everything in the Ministry of Interior, or should we pull out the Office of Information Security as an independent agency, or should we just pull out the Cyber Defense Center as an independent agency where everybody can collaborate? And in his opinion, a few years from now on, hopefully the state has figured it out. The tiny little problem, in my opinion, is that the state figures it out with our tax money. And for that, I would like to speed it up a little bit. But with that, we would like to come to the questions. So you saw the picture before, how the cybersecurity strategy as national security evolved in Germany, what struggles we have at the moment, the fight between two different ministries, the fight for competency, the fight for budget, basically, for relevance. How does it look in your country? How would you want the government to be involved in cybersecurity? First question, what does the situation look like in your country based on which ministry is involved? Just think about if there's an incident, do you first go to your peers? Do you go to the police? Do you go to a national CERT? Do you go to the intelligence agency? Who's your first point of contact? And why? Is it just because you drank with a buddy on the last 4-6 conference? Or is it because you have trust in the institution or trust in the organization, or perhaps both? Yeah, with that, Isabel and I thank you for listening to us, and we are thrilled for the discussion.
Thank you, Jan-Peter and Isabel. Are there anyone who wants to comment on their questions? Oh, I put them here. Otherwise, we will have a panel, and Jan-Peter will be in the panel as well.
I'm sure you're not all from Germany. There are some other countries here, so I would be really interested to get in on your perspective. If not now, then catch Isabel and myself later at the bar, but we will be really interested in your perspective.
So some of these people will actually be in the panel, and then we have some, they have to answer more or less. So I will take your questions with me.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we will go to the panel discussion. So I can just